Hi, well met, friends. How's it going? Good morning. Hello. Oh, amazing. I'm Steph Midlock.
And I'm Jude Vase.
And welcome to Athrabeth, a live show. Woo! Thank you all so much for joining us here at Oxonmoot 2025. It's such a pleasure to be here. Tell them about the show, Jude, for those who might not know us.
For those of you who don't know us, we are Athrabeth, a podcast exploring the lesser-trod paths of Tolkien's legendarium. Our goals are to sort of demystify the lesser-read parts of Tolkien's legendarium. This audience is more familiar with those things, but we aim to make Tolkien's works accessible and interesting and to introduce those to our listeners. We have been doing this for about, 8-9 years now? We started our journey in 2018, and we have been fortunate to be welcomed into the community by the Tolkien Society and so many of you. So thank you. This has been a great year for us, and we're really excited to be here.
Yeah, and so we are so pleased to be joined by two incredibly cool, very special guests today who you know and love, Dr. Sara Brown and Dr. Kristine Larsen. Woo! So they need no introduction, but just to give them a little introduction, Dr. Sara Brown is the Language and Literature Department Chair at Signum University, as well as a lecturer and the Master's Thesis Coordinator and Preceptor. And Dr. Kristine Larsen is a Professor of Earth and Space Sciences at Central Connecticut State University. And she also serves as the Director of their Honors Program. So amazing. Both of these two fantastic people have published papers on a range of topics that are critical to Tolkien studies, and it is just a huge honor to have you with us. So again, huge hands for them. They're
amazing. Today's live show is titled Tolkien's Try Hard Troublemakers, which is my fault. This was my idea. First, what is a try hard? This is a person who's really putting their back into being a problem for everyone around them, really trying to achieve something, really, and whether or not they get there, they're making it everybody else's problem while they're at it. Each of us has chosen one character from Tolkien's work who we think, regardless of their intentions, might have made everything worse. We'll take turns presenting and discussing our choices to discover which try hard is the hardest try in Arda.
I'm going first. So my subject today, let me start my thing. My subject today is truly a try hard in every sense of the word. As I was thinking about my presentation today, the words of three poets and philosophers resonated with me as sort of a modern interpretation of the guiding principle that drove my try hard to try so very hard. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to share a verse of theirs with you now. Whether you are a brother or whether you are a mother, you are staying alive. Okay, so a surprise Bee Gees. What a great way to start a presentation, right? And stay alive is exactly what my character aimed to do. Let us now examine the life and rule of the 13th king of Numenor. You know him, you hate him. It's Tar Atonamir. Hey! So who was he? Tar Atonamir was the son... He was kind of a big deal. He was the son of Tar Kiryutan, who was a real piece of work in his own right. Atonamir received the scepter in the Second Age around about 2029. There's a little bit of debate on the years there. He was around 229 years old, and he ruled for 192 years. We're seeing a lot of twos in there. He ruled, I think the important part is he ruled until his death, and he was the first king to do so. Bookmark that, because we're going to come back to that later. Before we dive too deeply, I want to do a super quick refresher on some foundational principles. So there's 5 of them, and they're super quick. Number 1, men are supposed to die. That is the gift of Iluvatar. Their fate goes beyond the bounds of the world to some plan who's known only to Iluvatar. Cool, fine, good. Number 2. Elros, brother of Elrond, he chose the gift of man to be human and hang out with the Edain and was blessed with a long lifespan, and so were his descendants as well. Great, cool, sounds amazing. Number 3, as a reward for fighting in the War of Wrath, the Valar granted the Dain the island that became known as Numenor, where they could be safe, they could hang out, they could play Parcheesi and build ships, and watch The Real Housewives of Numenor. I mean, sounds amazing, right? Cool. Number 4, the weariness. So Elros becomes the first king of Numenor, and he sort of starts this tradition of giving up life before becoming too old and decrepit. And there's a wonderful quote here from The Nature of Middle-earth that I'm not going to read because it's long and I don't have time. But the Eldar call this the weariness, the Quendi call it the seeking elsewhither, or it's the idea of desiring to depart from the world or to resign your life. So, cool, that's all right, whatever, you do you, that's fine. Finally, the Valar added a rule to all of this. The Númenóreans were not to travel west to Valinor. And I will read this because it's important. But the design of Manwë was that the Númenóreans should not be tempted to seek for the Blessed Realm, nor desire to overpass the limits set to their bliss, becoming enamored of the immortality of the Valar and the Eldar and the lands where all things endure. So, cool. All right, we can do that. Easy rules, right? Things were fine for a while. However, we know we can't have nice things. The Númenóreans start to get restless. And quote, and the Númenóreans begin to murmur at first in their hearts and then in open words against the doom of man, and most of all against the ban which forbade them to sail into the west. And this, my friends, is where my try-hard comes into the story. So in the time of Tar-Kiryatan and his son Tar-Atonimir, our guy, there were some Númenóreans who were like, hey, why can't we go to Aman? We have the Real Housewives of Numenor. We built all this cool stuff. I don't want to die and leave it all behind. That seems super unfair. And these rumblings make it back to the Valar. And Manwë is understandably not psyched about this. So Manwë sends some messengers to the Númenóreans to try and convince them that going to Valinor will not grant them eternal life. It's not the land that grants eternal life. And the very fact that they are made mortal by Iluvatar and the Valar cannot take that gift away, right? So going there is not going to do them any good. And it's like the one thing they said, don't do that. But basically he's saying you need to trust Iluvatar's plan. And Tar-Atonimir and the Númenóreans were like, wait, so we're just supposed to have blind trust and like think it's all going to be fine? Yeah. No thanks, we're not doing that. That doesn't sound like a good deal to us. So the messengers were like, look, no one knows the plan of Iluvatar. No one knows what he's thinking. But one thing we do know is that Valinor is not for you. Dad said no. Okay, they try to remind the Númenóreans that death is a gift and that it was Melkor himself that made you think that it's not a gift, right? And again, they ask the Númenóreans to have faith, to have hope that there's a plan, that they just don't know what it is yet. No one knows, but that it's going to work out. Well, Tar-Atonimir was like, that's lame. We're not doing that. And the quote goes, but Atonimir was ill-pleased with the counsel of the messengers and gave little heed to it, and the greater part of his people followed him, for they wished to still escape death in their own day, not waiting on hope. So they didn't want to wait. I don't want to wait for our lives to be over, as Paula Cole said. Not much else is really written about Tar-Atonimir, except for this damning piece of evidence that I think really illustrates his life choices. And Atonimir lived to a great age, clinging to his life beyond the end of all joy, and he was the first of the Númenóreans to do this, refusing to depart until he was witless and unmanned, and denying to his son the kingship at the height of his days. So, our little chucklehead here became known as the Great, or the Unwilling, because he refused to give up the scepter. And his son was not much better, probably a lot worse. Tar-Ankalaman was the next king, and it was during this time that the people of Numenor became divided between the king's men, right, those who were rebelling, and the Elendili, or the elf friends who stayed loyal. So that kind of brings me to my thesis here. To be like overly generous to this absolute asshat, Tar-Atonimir probably thought he was doing the right thing for his people, or at least for himself, if nothing else. But through this sort of lens of envy and greed, he believed that the gift of man was unfair, and he coveted life eternal. He received sound counsel from Manwë's messengers, and he just openly ignored them, because that's always a good plan, right? They asked Autonomir to have faith in the gift of Iluvatar, and he could not see past his own lust for self-preservation, and hence the surprise Bee Gees at the top of this presentation. In the end, Tar Autonomir died in a manner pretty unfitting to a king of Numenor, and his attitude allowed the shadow to grow in Numenor and actually sort of helped it along in many ways, and eventually brought about the fall of Numenor. He was a tryhard whose actions and greed brought about the end of his people, so that is why I am submitting Tar Autonomir as Arda's hardest try. Thank you so much. And Jude?
Oh, yeah. Okay. You can tell who is the graphic designer of our skeets from these slides. I'm an engineer, not a slide maker, but you'll forgive me. I have very obviously chosen Turin Turambar. We'll talk about the curse in a moment, but let's dive in. Turin Turambar, the son of Hurin, who sat on a cliff and thought about everything awful for a very long time. I think the thing that makes Turin Turambar to me the try-hardest try-hard is how much he accomplished in such a short period of time. So we're going to start with the highlights. Turin receives the dragon helm at 17 and immediately uses it to become an orc menace. Goes up to the northern borders and begins to absolutely terrorize the northern borders of Doriath, where he has been raised since early childhood. His first adult act of chaos is chasing a man who arguably deserved some kind of recompense for his bad behavior off a cliff, naked. Yeah, we'll come back to Saros. He did that at 20. I would also like to have an aside that I have questions for Thingol, who thought that that Turin was entirely blameless in this and thought that it was justified because he had said mean things about Turin's mom. I almost picked Thingol because he certainly deserved to be on this list. He then turns a band of outlaws because rather than have a reasonable conversation about these circumstances, Turin fucked off into the woods and met up with a bunch of outlaws and turned them into orc hunters, which he then used to bully a petty dwarf, who then very reasonably betrayed him. This betrayal very reasonably led to him getting tied up and taken prisoner. His best bro, Beleg, comes to rescue him and receives, for his good works, a sword in the belly. Turin takes this loss reasonably and decides, I'm going to go and do great things. I guess that it's very hard to gauge Turin's train of thought in many of these cases. He goes to Nargothrond and builds what I like to refer to as the Bridge of Arrogance and Dubious Choices. And then meets the Dragon of Bridge Appreciation. Following that disaster, he follows the dragon to Brethil, and there's that whole mess where he finally chases down his lady love and finds that she has died, and then has a very dramatic fit, but then retires. He's done. No more bad choices. He's just going to settle down with this nice girl that he's met, and everything's going to go fine, except that it's his sister. And then the dragon shows up, and so he then kills the dragon, and then when he's told that his wife was his sister, he kills the messenger, and then he does probably the most reasonable thing here and kills himself. I would like to point out that he was 35. He packs all this chaos. He has ruined an elven kingdom. He has slain the first dragon. He has done all this nonsense in 15 years. How old was Tar Autonomir?
192?
Yeah.
When he became king?
Yeah. 200 years of chaos. and bad choices. He had 15 years to make all this chaos. That said, I hear your thought. What about the curse? Turin is cursed by Morgoth. We have the curse here. But upon all whom you love, my thought shall weigh as a cloud of doom, and it shall bring them down into darkness and despair. Wherever they go, evil shall arise. Whenever they speak, their words shall bring ill counsel. Whatsoever they do shall turn against them. They shall die without hope, cursing both life and death. That seems to fit, yeah? A few of these things, the curse does seem to be a cause. Death of Beleg, yeah. You bully a petty dwarf, you make a bad choice, it causes consequences, like the death of your best bud. The fall of Nargothrond, yeah, that was bad counsel, and it causes the Bridge of Arrogance and the Dragon of Bridge Appreciation. Other stuff, I think arguably is less certainly blamable on the curse. I struggle to imagine Morgoth having this particular outcome in mind. This is also, I have to say, one of my absolute favorite pieces of art. I bless Ted Naismith for sitting down and to illustrate this particular moment. And again, I want to illustrate here the efficiency of our friend Turin here. He doesn't start making trouble till he's 20, at which point he kills so many orcs, his best friend with a sword, he builds a very ill-advised bridge, fights a dragon, marries his sister, and dies at 35. So the question really with Turin is he responsible for his actions if he's cursed? I think my response to that is it doesn't matter. I think Turin certainly has enough free will to continue to make bad choices. I went looking for material, and there's plenty of debate over how much free will Turin has in these moments, but I think ultimately, regardless, Turin is trying very hard, and he is making all kinds of bad choices and making everything worse for everyone around him. So in my mind, that makes him the triest try-hard of Middle-earth.
Sara, would you like the floor?
Okay, no arguments that those two are terrible try-hards, but I would say Thingol, who I did choose, is without question the greatest try-hard troublemaker in all of Arda's history. So let's begin at the beginning. While other elves were dutifully following the Valar to Valinor, what's Thingol doing? Getting distracted in the woods. I mean, yeah, okay, it's Melian, but still his entire people had to wait around awkwardly while he engaged in what was essentially the First Age's longest first date. And the Teleri are like, should we keep going? Should we? And thus began the great division of the Teleri, all because Thingol couldn't keep to a schedule. The original, sorry I'm late, but I met a girl excuse that changes the fate of thousands. I mean, can you imagine what it was like to be one of those Teleri just waiting around? Hey, has anyone seen Elwë? Yeah, he wandered into Nan Elmoth about 40 years ago. Should we look for him? Nah, I'm sure he's fine. Does he apologise for that inconvenience? Nope. He establishes Doriath and starts acting like the most exclusive nightclub owner in Beleriand. Sorry, your name is not on the list becomes the unofficial motto of the girdle of Melian. Next slide. He's also a foreign policy disaster because his approach to international relations deserves its own chapter in How Not to Diplomat 101. When the Noldor arrive back in Middle-earth, does he welcome his long-lost kin with open arms? Offer aid against the common enemy? Nope. He is too busy being suspicious and petty, and when he learns about the Kingslaying, which, okay, that's not great, his response isn't measured diplomacy, but a kingdom-wide language ban. Because nothing says effective resistance against Morgoth like linguistic politics. While Fingolfin and company are establishing defensive perimeters against Angband, Thingol is essentially saying, I'm going to need you to fill out all of these language compliance forms. And let's talk about his military strategy, shall we? It can be summarized as, I'm going to stay safe behind my magical wife shield, while occasionally sending troops when it doesn't inconvenience me too much. It's the Middle-earth equivalent of saying, I'm helping, while holding the flashlight incorrectly for someone else doing all the work. He's also the helicopter parent from hell. Now, I'm sure a few of you here are parents, some of you might even have daughters, but how many of you have demanded an impossibly dangerous quest from a suitor that was literally designed to get them killed? When Beren arrives, okay, he's dirty, he's mortal, he's probably smelling like a month-long orc hunt. Thingol could have simply said, no, you can't marry my daughter. That's clear. It might be a bit mean, but at least it's straightforward. Instead, he goes for, oh, you love my daughter, how quaint. I'll tell you what, just retrieve one of those gems from the crown of the Dark Lord, the one who defeated the combined might of the Noldor, killed Fingolfin in single combat, and has an army of Balrogs, the one currently wearing the gems on his head. Should be a simple errand for anyone worthy of my daughter's hand. No pressure. It's like telling your daughter's prom date, yeah, you can take her to the dance right after you break into the Tower of London and steal the crown jewels. And then personally deliver them to me, all while evading the entire London Metropolitan Police Force and all of his security branches. No big deal, right? I'll wait. What could possibly go wrong? So let's break down the consequences of this totally reasonable request. 1 magical dead dog. R.I.P. Huan, the goodest boy in Arda. 1 temporarily dead future son-in-law. 1 traumatized daughter who has to sing Morgoth a lullaby. 1 werewolf hunt because Karkaroth had the world's most dangerous and painful case of indigestion. Said werewolf rampaging through Doriath. And 1 awkward resurrection situation. Try explaining that at family dinners. And finally, the activation of the Oath of Feanor, which eventually leads to the destruction of his entire kingdom. And let's not forget that when Luthien was being pursued by the sons of Feanor, Thingol's solution was to check notes, lock her in a treehouse. Because nothing says responsible parenting like imprisoning your daughter when she disagrees with you. And how does that work out? Thingol's security measures are defeated by the Middle-earth equivalent of a teenager sneaking out of her bedroom window. All because he couldn't just have a rational conversation about her relationship choices. And now she's gone no contact. But the pièce de résistance of Thingol's try-hard career is his handling of the Nauglamir situation. Picture this scenario. You've got one of the most precious gems in existence. You also have one of the most beautiful necklaces ever crafted. And naturally, you want to combine them. Do you A, politely commission the work and offer fair compensation, which you then pay? B, learn to do it yourself, or C, hire the experts, then insult their entire race and refuse to pay them. If you chose C, congratulations, you might well be Thingol. So let's break down this masterclass in poor decision making. First, he acquires the Silmaril. Does he keep it low key? Maybe store it in a vault somewhere, perhaps consult with his Maya wife about security implications. No. He decides what this cosmically significant, already cursed jewel needs is to be even more visible and desirable. This gem that has already caused multiple deaths, including my almost son-in-laws, should definitely be turned into wearable bling. Imagine surviving the First Age, Morgoth, Balrogs, dragons and orcs, only to be done in by poor customer service etiquette. The Yelp review from the dwarves would have been scathing if they hadn't decided to express their dissatisfaction a little more directly. 1 star, commissioned complex jewellery work, then refused payment and called us names. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about all the other tryhards of Arda? Which is a fair point, but let's consider that competition. Feanor, amateur. He made an oath that doomed his entire bloodline, but at least he died quickly and he didn't have to watch the consequences unfold for centuries. Thingol was far more efficient. He dragged his disasters out over millennia. And that is commitment to disaster. Now, Turin, strong contender with his accidental sister marriage and friend killing, but Turin did have Morgoth actively working against him, whereas Thingol achieved disaster on his own initiative. At least Turin could say, it's not my fault, the Dark Lord is manipulating my fate. What's Thingol's excuse? Sorry, I'm just naturally bad at decision-making? Ar-Pharazôn, he tried to invade Valinor. Yes, a bit dumbass. But that was just one bad decision. Thingol made bad decisions consistently over thousands of years. And that really is commitment to the craft. Ar-Pharazôn speedran his downfall in a single human lifetime. Thingol took the scenic route. Through thousands of years of progressively worse choices. And it's the difference between crashing your car into a tree and slowly dismantling it piece by piece while insisting you're making improvements. All in all, Thingol's decision-making process appears to have been, what would a reasonable person do? Great, I'll do the exact opposite, but with more attitude. And let's not forget, he accomplished all this while having, 1, the most powerful defensive magic in Middle-earth, courtesy of his wife's girdle, which was not in fact a fantasy undergarment. 2, a literal divine being as his wife, who probably spent most of their marriage sighing heavily and saying, I told you so. 3, the most beautiful realm east of Valinor, which he managed to turn from a paradise to a war zone. 4, the most beautiful daughter in existence, who he tried to imprison rather than have an honest conversation with. Next, countless treasures and wealth, which he used to antagonize his neighbors rather than build alliances. And finally, thousands of years to think better of his actions, suggesting this is not impetuousness, but a carefully cultivated personality flaw. He still managed to make the wrong choice at virtually every critical juncture, engineering his own demise and the eventual destruction of everything he built, and that takes skill. That takes dedication. That takes a true try-hard. What makes Thingol the ultimate try-hard isn't just his individual poor decisions, it's remarkable consistency in making everything worse despite having every advantage. When faced with a mortal man loving his daughter, he made it worse by demanding an impossible quest rather than just saying no. When attempting to be a father, he made it worse by imprisoning his daughter rather than respecting her autonomy. When dealing with the return of the Noldor, he made it worse by focusing on language policies instead of building alliances against Morgoth. When commissioning a piece of jewellery, he made it worse by insulting the craftsmen instead of actually paying them. And when trying to protect his realm, he somehow again made it worse by ignoring the Council of Melian at the most critical moments. He took a peaceful, protected woodland realm and through sheer force of ego and poor judgment, transformed it into a cautionary tale. And that is not just failure, that's transcendent, multi-dimensional failure that extends beyond the grave. So the next time you're feeling inadequate, remember Thingol. Remember that even with a Maya wife, magical protection, immense wealth, and the most beautiful daughter in existence, you too can royally mess everything up if you just try hard enough. Remember that no matter how badly you might have handled any situation, you probably haven't sent your daughter's boyfriend on a suicide mission, insulted an entire race of skilled craftsmen while they were holding tools, implemented a language policy as your primary response to genocide, or lost an entire kingdom because you couldn't be bothered to write a check. Thingol, Middle-earth's greatest tryhard, Beleriand's premier troublemaker, and Arda's champion of making everything just that little bit worse. May we all learn from his example by doing exactly the opposite of anything he ever did.
That was great. And Kristine?
So, I offer as tribute, Aule the loser. In the original Ainu Lindale, we read how, quote, of the fabric of earth had Aule thought, to whom Iluvatar had given skill and knowledge scarce less than to Melko. Let's pause here for a moment. Given skill and knowledge scarce less than to Melko. What could possibly go wrong with this plan? From Aule, quote, comes the love and knowledge of the earth and of all those things that it contains, whether the lore of those who do not make but seek only for understanding of what is, studying the fabric of the earth and the blending and mutation of its elements, or the lore of all craftsmen. So all of science and technology is in his hands. Again, what could possibly go wrong with this plan? But let's give him the benefit of the doubt for a moment. What does he do with all of this science and technology and craftsmanship? Apparently, quote, he wrought there many fair and shapely things. Fair and shapely things. It could be worse, I guess. But does he make Pedro Pascal? No. He makes the dwarfs. What kind of genius plan is this? And note that he does it in secret, knowing that the adults in the room won't approve. But why does he do it? Because he, quote, desires it, is, quote, unwilling to wait, demonstrates willfulness, and has a, quote, desire to make things of his own after the pattern of the designs of Iluvatar. And what does that make Aule? Either a toddler screaming in the supermarket aisle or Dr. Evil. And what does this make the dwarfs? Cheap knockoff handbags. So back to his brilliant plan. Again, he works in secret underground labs because secret underground labs never lead to problems. And playing God never ever goes wrong. So what happens in this case? Daddy Iluvatar catches him with his hand in the cookie jar. And what does the boy genius do next? He deflects the blame. He actually has the gall to blame Iluvatar for making him this way. Oh, don't yell at me for wanting to make things. You made me want to make things. It's normal for a son to mimic his dad. Yes, I made these with my hands, but you made my hands. Not my fault. Now, look, Aule, that excuse might work for messing around in your dad's woodworking woodshop, but we're talking full-out Victor Frankenstein here. And being passive-aggressive as hell, Aule decides the way out of this is to kill the dwarfs. I mean, how Joan Crawford can you get? So what does Iluvatar do? He downs a couple of Excedrin with a vodka chaser and agrees to keep Junior's half-baked science project proudly displayed on the fireplace mantle, but only after all of his work buddies have come over for Sunday football. Now, if that was all Aule had done wrong, we might be likely to forgive him, but this was not a one-off screw-up. Back in the day, despite supposedly not trusting his creepy cousin Melkor, what does he do? He accepts from said creepy cousin shiny pillars for massive lamps that he had made to illuminate Middle-earth. Massive, fiery lamps. So when Aule, boy genius engineer, can't tell the difference between stone and ice, it all goes horribly wrong, burning and flooding parts of Middle-earth, causing geological upheaval. But wait, there's more. There's an old adage, you shall be known by the company you keep. So who does Aule keep as trusted Maya in his household? Sauron! How'd that work out for you? And when it came time to send Maiar to Middle-earth as the Istari to counteract Sauron's evil influence, who does Aule pick? Bueller? Saruman! Again, how'd that work out? And who else did he pal around with as frequent visitors to his home in Valinor? The ultimate clown car of a family, Feanor and his 7 doofus sons. And all the time he spent with Feanor, couldn't he just once have said, Feanor, no? Apparently not. To make matters worse, when the Valar discussed Miriel's decision to give up the ghost, Aule just had to mansplain, saying how he just couldn't believe that birthing Feanor was that traumatic. Aule was, quote, unwilling to believe that any taint of the shadow lay upon Feanor or upon any of the Noldor. Newsflash, Aule, you're not the sharpest Vala in the Blessed Lands. In fact, you're a plastic spatula. And you backed the wrong team. So how bad was his decision? Aule chose the Royal Engineers over Liverpool and Manchester United. Now, not only did Aule make excuses for his favorite brats, but he fed their attitude with more and more knowledge, and they were like little obnoxious sponges soaking it all up, until they invented gems, including the Silmarils. And we all know how that turned out. And that, kids, is how Aule messed up Middle-earth.
Well, there's a lot of food for thought here. Between the four of these doofuses, I mean, is there a clear winner, or are they all just the worst? I don't know. What do you think? We also want to know if anybody has any, like an elevator pitch for your own try-hard that you would like to give to us. Anybody have an elevator pitch? Or a question, perhaps?
Oh, that was great. I don't think mine's quite as good, but I think Denethor should probably get in there as well as best father ever, really. And even if the king does come back, I'm just going to completely ignore him and nothing to do with him. But he definitely tried hard to be steward forever.
Excellent choice.
That's a really good one. Any thoughts about Denethor?
Oh,
No.
Denethor is not exactly Dad of the Year, is
No,
he?
Daddy Dearest, no.
No.
I don't want to watch him eat a tomato. I don't want to watch him
Ew.
parent. I don't want to watch him do anything.
He backed the wrong son, but
Right?
Yeah.
Mickey.
So, my elevator pitch is Saruman, always. Does anyone remember the straight-to-VHS second Aladdin film? And there's a song called You're Always Second Rate? And I always think of this song whenever I think of Saruman, because he's always second best, and he's so bitter about it. He's second best to Sauron when they're Aule's Maya. He's not the best, Sauron is. He's second best to Gandalf, and he knows it, even though he is technically the White. He's second best again to Sauron a second time, and he's just constantly trying to be like, I am the most incredible, intelligent, amazing, wise person, and yet never actually does anything intelligent or wise at all. And he's just a petty little bitch. That's my elevator pitch.
Oh, so good.
Saruman is a bitter queen.
Graham, did you have one for us?
You know, I was going to say Bilbo, but for BBC balance, Mythros. Everyone admires him because he's the only Fëanorian who really tries to be diplomatic and unite everyone. And that's why he's everyone's favourite war criminal.
where's Claire when you need her?
But his main thing is trying to smooth things over once he and his brothers have already alienated everyone. He's sympathetic because he really tries. He gives the kingdom back after he already knew leaving everybody behind and burning the ships was wrong and did nothing to try and stop his father. He then tries very hard to promote the siege, but the siege is always hopeless. They can't even block him off from the east. Then there's the Union of Mythros, where he really tries to unite everyone, but his brothers have already kidnapped Thingol's daughter. But Turgon hates them, and then it does come out eventually, but he has no idea where he is. He does bring in some more men, but half of them see where the wind is blowing and stab his brothers in the back. He doesn't have most of the Sindar in sight. And again, his brothers have already alienated Nargothrond by betraying Finrod for reasonable reasons, since he knew what he was doing. So he's essentially bringing together an alliance that's half as big to even attempt to do the impossible job he was trying to do, and it destroys almost everyone who helped him. Everything that happened to Turin happens more or less because his dad was caught in Mythros' failed alliance. And he will not, and he's also a try-hard because even when all hope is lost, he decides, I have no hope at redemption, so I am going to double down. I am going to hold on and even into the fire. And that is why he is probably the First Age's biggest tryhard.
I would just say that he gets bonus points for yeeting himself into the fire.
Can I ask Sara a question?
Okay.
Well, I feel like for Thingol, the thing that irks me the most about Thingol is, and you had a great graphic about it, was his inability to listen to any of Melian's counsel about anything. And I love that that dovetails nicely with Jude's story, because I'm pretty sure she was like, maybe we shouldn't keep that meteorite sword around. Maybe we should just put that away. He was like, no, it's fine.
Give it to the troublemaker.
Yeah.
That's what could go wrong there.
What could possibly go wrong?
And when Bellig chose it, she was like, maybe not. And he was like, and
No, that's the
Yeah.
sword I want, so
Yeah.
I'm going to take it.
for
Nobody listens to Melian.
nobody listens to Melian. Yes.
Yes, except Galadriel. Yes, another woman, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a pattern here.
It does raise the question, though, what in God's name is Melian doing with Thingol?
Right?
Yeah.
She's loving it. You know that meme, oh, you're stupid, I like that in a man.
Yeah.
I mean, stupid and pretty, I guess.
This is it. I mean, yeah, he was pretty. That is for sure. He was very pretty. And, you know, the best of us can be distracted by a pretty face.
And the tallest.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
The tall thing. It's like that is he hot or is he tall thing, right?
There were hidden talents in the Hidden Kingdom.
And that's the quote for the t-shirt.
See, I wasn't going to say that, but I just knew Kristine would say that. But yeah, he was pretty and attractive, and she had nothing better to do, so she did Thingol.
That does explain the time in the forest while the rest of the elves were looking for Elwë.
Yes, yeah.
Right, they were like mesmerized. Yeah, okay.
Mesmerized.
Mesmerized,
Okay.
yes. Yes, they were absolutely just gazing into each other's eyes. Nothing else happened. Nothing to see here.
I mean, and one could also say the same thing about Yavanna. What was she doing with Aule? What's that
Yeah.
Again, pretty but dumb.
about? Yeah.
I think in Yavanna's case, I think that's probably more Eru's fault. That's him playing matchmaker and setting them off in little pairs, and it's like, ooh, opposites. And I have a question more for the room than the panel. Not at all self-serving. We have 3 very, very long-lived troublemakers. We have literal time untold. We have the entire First Age, and we have hundreds of years. And then we have 15 years. And I'm wondering what people find more compelling, efficiency or, you know, the long,
True
spending your
commitment.
time over long periods, spending your effort over long periods of time.
Slow cooker versus microwave, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Turin managed to topple an elven kingdom that had lasted for hundreds of years, and Thingol effectively did the same, so very similar outcomes in a very different amount of time.
Yeah.
It's also busting your own toys versus other people's toys, because he did kind
Yeah.
of just ruin his own shit, right?
Yeah, whereas Turin was just stomping on everybody else's
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, but it really does take commitment to keep doing that over thousands of years. To just wake up every day and say, I'm going to make another dumbass decision.
Yeah,
For thousands of years.
And you would think it'd be exhausting, right?
We would, yeah. It must have been exhausting for Melian.
Right?
Yeah.
Imagine, here we go again.
But creating your own species of intelligent beings and then like, oh, okay, I'll just step on them, I don't care.
Yeah.
Daddy doesn't like them, smite.
I think the other thing you can say with the time difference is that Turin, to a certain extent, it's kind of, you trip over one thing which causes you to crash into a wall, and then you trip something else up and knock the whole bookshelf over and everything. Whereas Thingol looks at the bad decision he made last time and thinks about it for a few years, and then does it again when he's perfectly in balance.
yes, that's an excellent point.
After ruminating on it, he's like, yeah, one more time. One more time for the people in the back.
Yeah, again, what could possibly go wrong?
This time it'll work.
Yeah, yeah, because the definition of madness is, expecting a different outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point because Turin's capacity for catastrophe is almost cartoonish. Did you like the alliteration there?
That
I
was
did.
very good. Yeah.
It is almost cartoonish. It's like a Tom and Jerry thing, isn't it? But with Thingol, where you have literal years to make a decision and you still make a really bad decision, and then you do that again, and then you do that again. I mean, yeah. I'd take your point about Turin. Turin is, he makes a mess of things, but at least it was quick.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And I do think that the fact that he is, the pinball comment is very on point. It's all one chaotic careen, and then he's done. He has accomplished as much trouble as his mortal frame can possibly contain, and then he's out.
And then he's done. Yeah.
Whereas Aule and Thingol have plenty of time to wreck something and then think about it and reflect upon that choice, and then do
it all over again.
All over again, which is really a choice.
I have a question for Jude. I mean, how about the Dagor-Dagorath? Because your boy's going to get a second act, right?
I didn't put that in, but yeah, I that's a thing I've always. I get that Turin is this epic character that Tolkien has constructed, and I think he has a very different view of Turin than we do, because he views him as, having as a tortured character that has been mistreated, and he will get his redemption in the final act. But I just don't know that I would ever put another sword in that guy's hand. He's had such a god-awful run.
He needs some anger management training, doesn't he?
Yeah, and then you bring him back at the end of all time to slay this foe, and every time you put a sword in this guy's hand and you give him something to do, there are just dire consequences. And I guess you can blame it on the curse, but also this guy's been building some very bad habits. That feels like tempting fate is what I was going to say, but that feels loaded in this context. It does feel dubious, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's coming back with jazz hands on. I know it.
Yeah.
He's got spirit fingers ready to go.
I'm wondering about the conversation between Thingol and when he goes to the halls of Mandos, and Mandos is at the door going, "Oh boy."
There had to have been an enormous amount of judgment.
I think so.
From all of the other Maiar.
I mean, there's the Feanorian naughty step in the deepest depths, right? I wonder how close to that he sends Thingol. But you can just imagine Mandos standing at the door, arms crossed, foot tapping, going, "I have been expecting you." Yeah.
Puts him in the corner that overlooks wherever the dwarves go.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes, that would be funny. Just sit in the corner and think about what you've done.
Just like Feanor gets the tower that overlooks wherever Gimli's hanging out with Legolas.
Any other questions or tryhards that you would like to put forth? This is your chance to make your elevator pitch. Yeah.
I have a comment.
Sure.
Okay, so my comment is about Aule, which is the whole argument Aule has of well, actually, it's Iluvatar's fault. The thing is, statistically, why do all the craftsmen keep messing up? Aule, Malkor, all of their Maya, both of them, there's Feanor, and at some point it's enough of a pattern that you ask why Iluvatar thought this was a good idea in the first place.
Are you saying Iluvatar is the triest hard? Oh no! Whoa!
Ultimately, it comes down to him.
That's amazing.
What
Thank you.
plan does he have that includes these yuckles that they are?
I think but seriously, thinking about Tolkien, taking a step back, I think we look at them as craftsmen. You have to look at them as technologists. And then it becomes clearer why Tolkien says they mess up, because they push it too far and they have that desire for more and more, and it always comes to a bad end. And the great thing about Tolkien is that he differentiates very clearly between the desire to understand the natural world, which is, what the elves are supposed to do, is to wonder and to learn and to appreciate. They're scientists. And then as soon as you start trying to use the P word, power, and to control, and you go into technology and engineering, that's when it all goes to pot.
It's a good point. I just wonder why people like that were given literal angelic powers in the first place.
Was there one final one?
Yeah. So I'm super biased because Belek is my man, but essentially I think Turin is more impressive because he punches above his weight. So Ali is a literal god. Thingol has he's married to a god essentially, and Turin is just a random dude. He manages to take down a whole Elven kingdom, which I think is just in the scale of what his power level was. More impressive than a god just being like, I'm just going to create random things that don't work out, and then Dad is angry. So I'm sorry, I'm just essentially voting for. No,
that's a good point. He has his reach far exceeds what he should be able to hit. He's short amount of time, enormous reach. It really is. Whether or not any one of these is very debatable, but certainly Turin's. One of the most impressive things about Turin is how much he gets done in so little time and how far it exceeds what a single mortal man should be able to do.
I'd take that point, but can I just point out that Thingol was definitely punching above his weight when he married Amaya?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's so true. Well, with the last few minutes, I just want to ask Sara and Kristine, do you have any projects or anything that are coming out that you want to plug? Any books on the horizon? Give us the lowdown skinny.
Yeah, we do. Let's talk about the Oxford Handbook that's going to be coming out next year. This is very exciting, actually. This is a wonderful project that's being edited by Dimitra Fimi and Luke Shelton, and it is going to be a brand new handbook to Tolkien. And your chapter?
My chapter is on astronomy, cosmology, geology, and paleontology in 6,000 words in Tolkien's works.
And mine is on the entire history and current state of feminist criticism of Tolkien's works in 6,000 words. So you can imagine what this handbook is going to be, actually, is a really great guide to all things Tolkien, both criticism and things within Middle-earth and readings of Tolkien, but boiled down to nice, short chapters that will be extremely readable. So that's a very exciting project that's coming out next year. So do look out for that.
We're really excited for that. Everything we hear about that book makes us just frothing to get our paws on it. So
thanks for that visual.
And we would like to plug our sister show, Athrplay. If you haven't heard of it, it's an actual play podcast. We have our lore master, James, who you've heard us talk about on Athrabeth many times, leads us through Middle-earth in a story using the One Ring role-playing game system, and we're just crazy proud of it. One of our castmates, Tori, back there, is here this weekend.
Ow!
And we're really, really proud of Athrplay, the work that it does to shine lights on different corners of the legendarium and let lots of different people bring what they find really exciting and interesting about Middle-earth into one story that we can all share and bring to you. So if you are a listener of Athrabeth and you haven't checked it out yet, we really encourage you to do so. And if you're new to all of our stuff, please check out Athrplay as well as Athrabeth. Thank you so much for being on our weird little panel here today.
Very welcome.
This has been a lot of fun, and we're really grateful for both of you being here.
Yeah, and a huge thank you also to the Tolkien Society for having us. We've been so embraced by this community, so thank you. And thank you to all of you for coming. So big hand for all of us. Thank you so much.